Believe it or not, this is my first hot chocolate of the winter season, even though it's not technically winter yet. But we are just gonna pretend for this video that it is officially winter because it feels like winter. It is frigid outside. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. Hi, my name is Liz, and in today's video, you probably already guessed it, or from the title of this video, you already know it, and that is we are going to be discussing my winter recommendations. I have done this video, I believe 3 times, and this might be my 4th time, or maybe this is my 3rd time. I can't remember. Time is weird. And every single time I do a seasonal TBR, I try to pick books that I have read within the past year, so that way they're still fresh and they're like newer recommendations. And I also try to make sure I don't repeat anything that I have said in previous videos. I do recommend all of the same books that I recommended in previous winter recommendations videos. So if you want even more recommendations than what I'm giving in this one, you can go check out those videos. These are books that I have read in this past year of 2025, and I have enjoyed every single one of these. I'm so excited to talk about them. Some of them have specific reasons why I recommend them for winter. Some of them it's just like a feeling I get, and like maybe I read it in the winter so it felt like a wintry book to me. I don't know. Most of these books, if I choose them for a certain season, it all just comes from up here and there might not be any logic behind it. So please bear with me. Without further ado, let's go ahead and chat about some winter books. So the first 2 books I want to talk about, they are both hockey romances. So I want to start with my romance books and then slowly work my way through some different genres. Hockey romances are always like one of the first things that I think about when I think about the season of winter. I thoroughly enjoyed these 2 books. I will say that there's a lot of trauma and healing that is happening in both of them. So there's a lot of things that the characters have to work through. So it's not like a super light-hearted hockey romance by any means, but it is still very beautiful. They're both standalones, but they're interconnected. So you do see glimpses of different characters in both of them, and they are also running, I think, at the same time. Like both storylines are kind of happening at the same time. So when you read one book, you'll see like random clips or snippets of the other couple, and then vice versa. But it all is happening within the same timeline, if that makes sense. Those are Unsteady and Unloved by Peyton Corrine. I really enjoyed these books. I picked these up this past winter and I thoroughly enjoyed my time while reading them. Unsteady is the first one technically, and that is following our 2 characters, Reese and Sadie. Reese is the hockey captain at this college, and he suffered a really bad traumatic injury at the previous year's tournament. He is having panic attacks and having a really hard time getting back on the ice. And meanwhile, Sadie, she is an ice skater, and right now she is just struggling to make ends meet. She is also trying to get custody of her 2 younger brothers. She also has this really bad reputation on this campus as being very rude and disappearing, not being very reliable, and all these things. However, she is juggling a lot of things behind the scenes. One day, Sadie discovers Reese out on the ice suffering a panic attack, and she tries to help him. And ever since that moment, they both have this connection and they lean on each other for support while trying to work through their issues. I thought it was a very beautiful story. It was very emotional as well. Both characters have a lot of things that they're unpacking and working on throughout this book, but I thought it was really beautiful, and I loved seeing how they supported each other through that process and seeing the healing that they both had to go through. Meanwhile, during that story, you were also getting Unloved, which is following our 2 main characters from the first book's best friends. We are following Freddie, who is one of the players on the hockey team, and we are following Ro, who is Sadie's best friend. Freddie, he is failing one of his classes and he needs a tutor, so Ro is super smart and is his tutor. So it does start off as more of a friendship. This one is definitely way more slow burn than the first book, but I thought it was really beautiful because you see them as they're studying together. You can see their walls kind of break down, and they both also have things that they are working on, and at the same time they just become such great friends and support systems for each other. And I loved seeing that friendship slowly turn into more. I thought it was done really well. The pacing and everything was done really well. Like I said, both of these books are kind of happening simultaneously. I would definitely read this one first and then this one, but I really would pick up both of them because I feel like you get the full story if you read both of these books. I'm not sure when the 3rd book is supposed to come out, but I'm very excited to continue this series and with these characters because there's some other side characters that I would absolutely love to read their stories. The next book I really want to talk about, this is one I actually listened to as an audiobook and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had to go and pick up a physical copy because of how much I loved the story and these characters, and that is The Favorites by Lane Fargo. This is revolving around ice skaters. So our 2 main characters, Kat and Heath, are ice skating partners, and in this story you're learning about both of them in their childhood from the moment that they met as kids and up until they're adults and they're skating together at the Olympics. While this is all happening, while you're learning their timeline and what happened, it is 10 years in the future, and there is a documentary series going around where it is basically recounting what happened in their partnership and how it all fell apart. The whole time you're wondering what actually happened. So you're getting these snippets in between chapters of this documentary, and they're interviewing friends and coaches and people who were around these two as they were going through their career, and you were learning about what happened to them, and it keeps alluding to this big thing happening. And so the whole time you're just like, what is going on? But at the same time, it hooks you and does not let go. Our two characters have a very fiery and passionate relationship with each other, as well as with the sport of ice skating. And I just thought it was so fascinating. This really made me find a new appreciation for ice skating and the things that ice skaters, the athletes themselves, have to go through. It talks a lot about the grit and determination of being a professional athlete and the sacrifices you have to make and the relationships you may or may not keep. And it was just such a beautiful story. Hi. I would highly recommend it to anyone. It is a love story technically in a loose sense, but it is mainly just learning about their journey as partners, and also just like the sport itself. You learn so much about it. If you decide to listen to the audiobook like I did, it does have a full cast, and I think that is what made me truly fall in love with this book, and I highly recommend it. The next book is historical fiction, and this was one of the first ones I picked up in a very long time. I read it this past winter and I loved it so much, and that is The Librarians of Lisbon by Suzanne Nelson. It does say on the back, if you're a fan of The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, then you would enjoy this book. I'm planning on reading The Nightingale this winter, so I'm really excited to see if that holds up or if that is true and how that compares to this book. This is set in 1943, so it's happening during World War II. You're following two American librarians who are friends who get taken across seas to become undercover spies. You're getting both women's perspectives. It's Bee and it's Celine, and they both have two very different missions and tasks that they have to complete while they're over here overseas. It was fascinating. I loved going back and forth between both of their storylines. Both of them have so much going on, and the other doesn't really know what the other one's doing, so it's kind of like a secret. Neither one knows what the other's mission is. You see them slowly like intertwine a little bit and like go in different directions, and I just thought it was fascinating. I really enjoyed it. Both of them have their own little hints of romance in their storylines, which, you know, I ate that up. Also, just like the war and the way that this spy network was working, I just thought it was done really well, and I'm excited to read The Nightingale because of this book. The next book is general fiction, so we're slowly getting away from romance, and that one is Beartown by Fredrik Backman. I'm sure you could guess that this was going to be on my winter recommendations. I read this past winter, and it was a 5-star read. I loved this book so much. It's the first book I ever read by Fredrik Backman, and ever since I have read so many more of his books, and I've loved every single one of them. I'm really excited to continue on with this trilogy this winter, so I'm planning on reading Us Against You at some point in the next few months, and hopefully The Winners as well if I have time. I really also liked how you could have read it as a standalone. I know a lot of people who have read it as standalones and were content with the way the storyline ended, and I will agree with that. I think if you don't want a trilogy and you just want a standalone, it still felt like it had a very satisfying ending to where I could have ended with these characters in that moment in time, but I can see where the story is going, and I love these characters so much that I just have to know what else there is. In a very loose and vague sense, this book is following a town that loves ice hockey. You bounce around between many different perspectives, different people in town. You see almost every single person, every single character, and you get to have a glimpse inside of their head at some point during this book. And I thought that was just such a unique way of storytelling. It fully encapsulated everything that was going on in this town. It gave me a really good understanding of what these people were going through, what their thought process was, and why certain people acted the way that they did. This book also shows how one act can affect an entire population of people. No matter how big or small the act may be or seem, you get to see the domino effect that this action has over so many people. It made me tear up. I really enjoyed this book. It gave me chills. I don't want to say much more because I don't want to spoil anything. Just know if you decide to pick up this book, it will be worth your time. The next books I'm going to talk about are some fantasy ones because I read a ton of fantasy during the winter time, so I definitely want to talk about some of my top ones. And the first one I want to talk about, this is actually the first book I read this year, and that is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. This was also my first 5-star of the year. I did give this 5 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed this book, and I'm so excited to read Brimstone. I have a copy, I just haven't gotten to it yet, but I definitely will be reading that this winter because I loved this book. This story is following our main character Ceres, and she lives in this world where she's definitely on the lower lower rungs of society. She lives in this kind of like almost desert land. She is a thief. She picks pockets and she steals from guards, and that is how she makes her living. That's how she supports her and her brother. When one pickpocket goes wrong, she gets arrested and ends up being sent to be executed. And in this process of basically almost being executed, she unknowingly unlocks this magical pool of what's called Quicksilver, and out comes this big Fae warrior, and he saves her and takes her back to his Fae lands, which is a land of ice and snow. So you can see why I think this should be a winter book. The setting itself makes you feel like you are in winter. While she is there, she is thrown in the middle of this Fae war that is going on. She had no idea that the Fae even existed, and she's thrown into this world where she does not belong. However, she does have a hidden magic that has not been seen in hundreds of years. She is one of the last of her kind with this magic that can speak to this Quicksilver, this silver metal pool of liquid. She can basically transport between dimensions through it. In vague terms, that's kind of how that works. I really enjoyed this book because I feel like it just had me from page one. It was non-stop action. Like there was something happening constantly. I really enjoyed our main character. She had a lot of attitude, a lot of sass, and she did not put up with any of the crap that she was getting thrown at her. I'm just really excited to continue in this world. I do believe it's going to be a trilogy, but I definitely will be reading Brimstone this winter. Next book I'm going to be talking about is Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. I read this for a book club a few months ago and I enjoyed it so much. It was such a beautiful story. If you have read Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows, which is one of her fantasy duologies, this is technically a prequel to that story. However, I will say I don't think you need to read them in either order. Like I feel like you could read this first and still enjoy the duology afterwards, or vice versa. I really enjoyed coming back to this world and seeing kind of like the gods and goddesses perspective on everything. Like I said, this is told from the gods and goddesses perspective with a male protagonist who is a human, and our main character, her name is Matilda, and she is a herald of the gods. She's basically a messenger for them. She can travel between the different realms. So there's the underlings, there's the mortal realm where the humans live, and then there's the skywards, and she can actually travel to all three, which I thought was really interesting and cool, a cool take on the gods and goddesses and how like their whole hierarchy and system works. Matilda, she ends up as a young girl reading these dreams from this human voice perspective, and they slowly build a friendship through his dreams. She's able to communicate with him. Later on, when she gets older, they actually meet in person, and they didn't realize the other one was real or existed. And I just thought it was such a beautiful story watching their timeline from young kids into their adulthood, how their two paths interweaved and then also went apart. And I just thought it was so beautiful. I thought their love story was also done so well, with the writing style being so beautiful and lyrical. I feel like it just gave me so many cozy feelings, and I think this would be the perfect fantasy for the winter time. And the final book I'm going to be recommending today, it may not be for everyone, but I think it is for some people, and that book is Alchemized by Senlin Yu. I gave this 5 stars. I loved this book so much. I will say this is a very traumatic world and story with what these characters go through. It is a very scary and very ugly story as well, because it is discussing the horrors of war. If you get triggered easily, you probably should not pick up this book, because this will trigger you. It has pretty much every single trigger you can imagine. It was very heartbreaking. It gave you every single emotion you could possibly think of is thrown in here, and you will experience it. I was heartbroken and devastated while I was reading this book, and yet here I am saying it was a 5-star read. There was moments of hopelessness, but then also there were moments of hope, and I think it had just such a mixture. And I will say that the sadder, more traumatic things definitely took a bigger part of the story. There was less hope and happiness than one would think in a almost 1,200 page book, but it was so beautiful watching these characters and their story and their arcs. I feel like I was so connected to this world and these characters that we were following. It is set in a world where there's the alchemists and the necromancers, and basically this war happening between the two, and the necromancers won, and with their magic they are able to bring people, or reanimate bodies, bring people back to life essentially, and inhabit those bodies. Our main character Helena, she was on the losing side of this war, and it starts with her waking up in this tube, and she is trapped and she is held captive, and she has no clue what happened. She has a big gap in her memory and cannot remember what happened during this war that led her to her capture. She doesn't really know what's going on post-war either, like where her friends and family are. She doesn't know anything. So we are going along with her on her journey of trying to uncover these memories and figure out what happened and why she is being held captive. But I will say it is a very heavy book, so Do not pick it up if you are worried about triggers, because this has pretty much every trigger you can imagine, but it was well worth it. I'm so glad I read this book because I still have not stopped thinking about it since I read it a few months ago. And that is going to be it for my winter recommendations. Obviously there's way more that I could recommend, but these are, like I said, these are the ones that I read within the past year that just screamed winter to me, so I definitely wanted to talk about them. There's so many more though in my previous winter recommendation videos, so if you want even more, please go check out those videos because I talk about way more books. I hope you guys enjoyed. This was really fun for me because I am so excited for my winter TBR, and I'm in the midst of all of the craziness of that winter TBR, and I'm loving every second of it. I'm really enjoying my reading right now. I hope you guys are having a great December month, and reading is always a very fun and cozy companion in the winter season. Please comment down below what books you're reading this winter. I'm so curious. I would love to hear other winter recommendations. If you have any, please send them my way because I will gladly add to my TBR for you guys. Stay tuned for the rest of this month. We have a lot of fun and exciting and cozy videos coming up. Once again, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Happy reading. Bye.